Good Friday morning. This is Dr. Bill Williams coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia on the Influencers Podcast. And today we're going all the way over to Austin, Texas, and we're talking about, or maybe that's Keller, Texas. We're going to talk with my friend Billy Robbins, founder of Intent Company. Welcome, Billy, to our show.
Thank you, Dr. Bill. Appreciate you having me.
Tell me exactly, where is Keller, Texas?
It's about 20 minutes north of Fort Worth.
Okay, so you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro, and
Yep.
Everybody that's been there loves Dallas and Fort Worth. So many times I've gone and I've said the best steaks in America right in Dallas.
Yes, sir. I agree.
So let's go deep into what you're doing with Intent Company. We want to know what happened, where you were that got you started in this today.
Yeah, well, I guess it's interesting just in the marketing world in general. Back in my early 20s, when I started, I was dating this girl, and her father was pretty successful in network marketing, and he had an interesting opportunity. So he got me in there, and I never made any money with that, but it got me thinking different, got me reading different books and, thinking a little differently. And after I, tried to convince everybody I knew, but, when you're a poor 24-year-old who hasn't done anything in your life, you don't have much influence. So I said, man, I need to start using the internet. And so I bought my first course back in 2004 on it was lead generation and landing pages and emails and all those things. And again, didn't really translate much into that business, but it became the foundation for understanding how to use the internet to influence purchase decisions. And that was kind of the catalyst that started back 18, 19 years ago. And that's what got me into the marketing world.
So you got started as an internet junkie like I did.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my dental practice, and that did not hold my interest 100%. So I had to find an outlet.
Yep.
And I felt like the internet back in the late 1980s is when I started.
Wow.
Mining emails internationally so I could go overseas to build companies.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Crazy stuff. And
Yep.
Anyway, you have been in the business for now 20 years.
Yeah.
And you got something called a customer journey agency.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. And that's kind of, it's funny how you start off and then you go through some things. So, if you fast forward from that time I started, working online about 10 years later or so, I found myself running a medium-sized digital agency. We were doing a few million a year and had, decent little business, but I really started getting discontented because it just seemed like, every client we got, we're going to buy some ads, we're going to buy some Google, we're going to buy some Facebook, and some people were successful, some weren't. And I don't know, it just seemed like we were a little machine. I'm like, there's got to be more to this. And actually I went to a conference out in Seattle, and I was kind of really like praying and asking like, what am I doing? Is this where we're going? What's happening? And while I was there, I just started to kind of reflect on the businesses that seemed to do, the best, the ones that were really like making impact. And what I realized was they had a process in place where they were able to lead people through the entire customer journey. And if you think about it, I kind of summarize it like every business, they have one of three problems: either getting someone to be aware that they exist, or getting the people who are aware to take their desired action. And then what really separates brands today is the third step, which is ignored so much, which is turning customers into brand advocates. So awareness, action, and advocacy. And that really started kind of what became Intent Company and what we do now, where we help brands understand what is the full path to purchase that their best customers take. And how do we lead people, not just to get a transaction, but to turn customers into raving fans who talk about you all the time, who buy again and again, leave positive reviews. And it actually brought a lot more purpose to what we were doing, because it's more about the intent, and hence Intent Company, the intent of your customers, the intent of your best customers, and doing everything you can to encourage them to become brand advocates.
That sort of sounds like you're dipping into now the top 3 success secrets that others should probably look at and model from. I like those three. You want to add on to those, or is
Yeah.
that pretty much the number one?
Well, I would say, I mean, from a market, if you think about it, at any given time, you have to solve one of those problems, right? If you're a new company and you haven't got any traction going on, you have an awareness problem, right? So when you think marketing wise, you got to think, okay, how do I attract the right people and make them aware that I exist, right? If you're getting some traffic, but you're not really seeing the sales that you need, you got to start thinking conversion. And it's funny because in the marketing world, there's these weird buckets, if you will, right? You're like, oh, I'm a brand agency. I do the high level branding stuff. And I've done that. I worked with really big companies. You care about branding. Then you got your direct response marketing, and it's, long form sales pages, direct response scripts, dialing for dollars, and then you got the blogging, and then you got social and all this stuff. And it's funny because most agencies or people, brands, what have you, they think, oh, that's my bucket. But actually, no, the way you market needs to be predicated on where the person is in the journey. Yeah, if somebody's not aware of you or doesn't know, like, and trust you, sure, you shouldn't be going hardcore direct response. But at the same time, if they know you and they're in your list and they're engaging with you, at some point you got to influence them. You got to sell them something. And so if you think about it, if you say the right thing to the right person at the right time, you're going to get the right result. And so that's really the essence of customer journey marketing, is understanding where that individual is and then communicating them in the way that helps them go to the next step. So from a strategic standpoint, I would say that's one of the three. But the other side of what I was just discussing, I think another thing to think about is automation, because it's very difficult. Obviously, almost every company would know, if I get one-on-one FaceTime with someone, that's going to give you the highest likelihood of conversion. Of course, because they know, like, and trust, and you can cater what you communicate to the person you're talking to. But how do you do that on scale? Well, you need to have automation systems in place. You need to be able to have, and I believe behavioral automation is the most important thing, meaning how someone behaves, you then drive them down a different pathway. If someone clicks on everything that you have and they visit your landing pages all the time, you should communicate them a little different than someone who doesn't engage. Or you should treat a customer, someone who's giving you money, different than someone who just entered your email list. So using behavioral automation, I would consider maybe the second thing. And then the third secret of success, I guess I would say, and this is funny, I've worked with some really big companies, and it's amazing how many people do not do this. And the third step is optimization. I believe you have to be committed to split testing. And even when companies come to me, I'm a consultant, and I think I have some pretty good, know-how to get things going. But at the end of the day, it's the data that dictates what's working and what's not. So you got to be quick to launch, quick to learn, quick to change, fail quickly and fail forward. And if you think about it, if you're always paying attention to what's happening and always making micro improvements and you never stop, at some point you're going to be successful. You got to keep learning and growing and testing.
And all those are secrets to success, and a company that puts those together sequentially, it's going to be successful. So very well done. There had to be some areas along the way where you had a failure that just didn't turn out, or you had a turn in your life to move forward. Tell us about that, Tom.
Yeah, I would actually, it's less on, marketing, things like this is life stuff. But I realized the thing that I became, when I launched my business, I became quite successful quite fast. I was an independent consultant, and I went real quick. And what actually was the biggest challenge I had was growing. I didn't know how to scale. And the thing that I realized I didn't do enough is I didn't trust people. I should have immediately, got a CPA, tax attorney, bookkeeper, started hiring people. But I don't know if it was just this, poverty mindset or things like that, this lack mindset. But it was hard for me to invest in a team, people, and even support teams. And so I ended up really making my growth a lot harder by trying to do everything on my own, not trusting people. And it took a lot of years to kind of rewire my thinking and also start to get the right people in process. It's funny because most people start a business because they were really good at something, and they're like, why should I do this with somebody else? I'm so good at building a house or doing a thing or doing this, and I'm gonna go do it on my own. But the problem is that having a successful business has very little to do with what you actually do in your business. It has very little to do with plumbing or marketing or anything else. It actually, there's business skills that you need. You need to be successful in business. And so getting around people that have those skills, thinking that mindset, thinking cash flow, thinking team, those kind of concepts are what you need to really have a thriving long-term business. And I was just really resistant and reluctant to do that. And it slowed my growth quite a bit for a number of years.
That's exactly what I found in the dental business. I was a consultant in the dental business for 15, 20 years, as well as practicing. And I realized the same thing, that most dentists are great at what they do in the operatory, but they pretty well don't have any business mindset.
Yep.
And for them to take on, it's a big step even. So, business, like smart people bring in experts. That's the key.
Yep. Absolutely.
What's the motivation that you have to do all this, keep going?
Man, I have a few. One, I love what I do. And I think that's extraordinarily important. I'll be honest, a lot of people come to me when they're starting businesses or, different ideas, and they're like, hey, there's this niche and this is going on and this is really hot right now and this and that. And I'm like, unless you're like extraordinarily greedy and money motivated, I doubt you'll maintain the passion and go through the grind that it takes to be successful if you don't love what you do. And so now I started, I wrote down a few kind of laws, if you will, of starting my business. And I had two main ones that I was like, okay, when I grow my business, these two things have to be in place. The first one was, my business must be subject to my lifestyle, not my lifestyle subject to my business. And I saw a lot of people who, their whole lives revolve around their business, where they live, where they go, what they do. And I just didn't want that. I wanted my business to be subject to my lifestyle. And so that was, you make decisions when that's the case. The second thing I wrote down was, I want to do work I love, for people I love, with people I love. And so that's really important, that I get the opportunity to do life with these people. And for me, I love entrepreneurs. I love people willing to take risks to provide a better life, to serve people, to solve problems, to take care of their family. And so that's, really some of the main drivers. And I'm fortunate, I've been doing this for a while and I'm still pretty fired up about what we do.
I like to hear that. You're a man after my own heart. I stayed at it for 46 years doing something I loved. And I just retired this year so I could do this, something more fun. Even
Awesome.
The dentistry is talking with people around the country. So I got your passion. The company's motto, the Intent Company.
Yeah, well, really our motto, or kind of our, if we say, what do? We help purpose-driven brands turn customers into raving fans. And that's really what we want to do.
What would lead somebody to want to buy from you? Why should they?
I believe the companies that come to us that want to buy are ones that they actually care about their customers. And so they want to see purpose and not just growth, but that they take care of their customers. And you can do marketing both ways. You exploit your customers or you really serve them and love on them. And that's, I think, a base level of what we do.
Somebody who joins them on the journey and carries them through and doesn't drop them somewhere along inconvenient.
Yep, exactly.
What about your ideal client? Who would that be?
Yeah, our ideal client are small businesses. They're usually in the 10 to 50 employee range. So they're successful. They've been going, they've got some customers, but that kind of explosive next step, they just kind of keep hitting the wall. That's usually our best customer, because we apply some of our advocacy strategies and leverage their current client base. One of our keynote presentations, I say, is how to double your revenue without spending $1 on ad spend. And really, that's how you do it. When you take really good care of your customers and you turn them into raving fans, you see explosive growth without all the front end acquisition and all the other stuff. Then when you have those systems in place, now go spend money on the front end, because you get a maximum value by really caring for and taking care of your customers.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you've got systems in place and you can handle the growth, then scaling works. Otherwise, you may fall flat. I agree with that. How do you find these clients? Is there a specific way you go about getting them in?
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is what we build and recommend for our clients is what we do. And so, we believe that the essence of a business should be to serve people and solve problems. So we focus a ton on content, on serving, on delivery, and webinars and tools. And, we try to flood the marketplace. I believe if I can help people intellectually and strategically up here, and I serve them at that level, then when they're ready to execute, we're kind of the no-brainer. We're the company of one. And so that's really what we do is we social, email, even in advertising that we do, it's just serve people, add tons of value, make people's lives better, and it usually draws the right client.
Yeah, I agree. As the mastermind leader that I ran for many years, I always worked on mindset, number one.
Yeah.
Change the mind, work up here, and then put the systems in place.
Yep.
How do you actually crush your competition?
By over delivering, really. I mean, if you can get somebody as a client and you wow them with this customer support and satisfaction, and they see the results, and you really care about people, it's like impossible for people to leave.
Yeah, I believe that. Billy, tell me about your well-defined products and services. What do you offer?
Yeah, so I would say our core product is what we call the automated advocacy machine. And so it's automation system that leverages emails, text messages, landing page, content, all kinds of things to deliver a consistent and value add process to your customers that gets them to buy again and again, buy all your upsells, become raving fans, tell everybody they know about you, totally engage. And again, that's what we believe is the usually the lowest hanging fruit for a healthy company is turning a customer into a brand advocate. And that automated advocacy machine is our core. And it's a full complete. It's software, it's the copy, it's the tools, it's everything. Because I spent years being a consultant and working in agencies, and then I've got into software. And oftentimes you buy a software and you're like, oh, have fun, figure it out. Or you're an agency and like, hey, we do everything for you. So I feel like we were able to bring that all together. We can provide a 360 approach in a really intimate fashion for brands today.
So do you actually create the software that you recommend, or do you choose a platform that somebody else has and you adapt to it?
Yeah, no. So it's we did that for years. So I worked with all the big CRMs and automation platforms for a year. And then a couple of years ago, I realized I need to build a tool that fits for what we do. So we have our Intent Company app, which is a full all-in-one marketing automation CRM system. But again, rather than just buying a software, it's preloaded with what we've known over the last 20 years to be the best practices in communication, engagement, lead generation, sales, advocacy. So much more than just a software, it's a fully loaded tool. One of my things I always say to brands is we turn months into days. When you work with an agency, it takes months to launch these things, but instead you can launch this in a weekend because we've done all the heavy lifting and the best practices in a templatized, ready to go format.
Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds like you got your act together. A lot of the people I interview, actually, they don't market themselves with their own techniques they use in their business. And that tells me, they always say, I don't need to do anything, but I have word of mouth and that keeps me busy enough. Well, it's kind of interesting. I find word of mouth in my business was 50%, but marketing in the other arenas was another 50%. So if you want to be more busy, 100% busy, you got to do both.
Yep. Yeah. We use a phrase around here called meta marketing. And so when we're marketing, we're basically just telling everybody what we do and just say, this is what we do. This is what you're in. You're in the follow-up sequence right now. So you're about to get these emails that do this, and this is why they do that. So we almost like are educating and teaching about the process while they're in the process. And so, they get to feel the experience of what they're doing. And again, if you focus, one of my little things I always say is 80-20, 80% value, 20% sales. So if you just always, in everything that you do, try to add value and serve people with 80%, like if you send an email, 80% just nuggets, good, awesome content, 20% call to action, next step. And so we try to incorporate that in everything that we do.
It's so hard for people to slow down and not do the action steps. They want to flood people with action steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about 5-star client experience? Something you do that nobody else does. What would that be?
So, one thing we do, we have a full-time position that is our customer satisfaction rep. And so they're on the phone, they're checking in with people. We're doing quarterly business reviews. We really care. One thing we also do a lot of is we send kind of fun packages. I got we have our intent company boxes. And so, whether it's books or Moleskine notebooks or gift cards, we're just trying to bless people, and we figure out where are they, what are they into. You mentioned steaks earlier. Certain customers hit a certain peak. We're online looking at the best steakhouse in town and sending them a gift certificate. And people want to know that they're uniquely cared for, right? We're talking about automation and all that stuff, but I think sometimes people can get carried away where they're like, oh, I want a fully automated, I don't do anything business. But actually, I think the reason you use automation is because you take the minutia off the plate of your team so that people can do what they're uniquely gifted at.
That's true.
If they're not spending 20, 30% of the time doing the minutia, then they can get on the phone. They can get to know people. They can interact, and they can bring the human element. And so that's something that we try to do. Even though we're a tech and an automation company, we try to be individualized, personalized, and intimately connected with our customers.
Did you ever study under GKIC and Dan Kennedy and?
Oh yeah,
the Wow Box, the big BAM box.
Yeah. I love Dan Kennedy. That's some really good stuff. And it's a Wow Box. It's a way to create a unique moment, and that's what people remember. They remember moments. They remember those experiences, and so that's, I think, the heart of it.
Now you have some goals. Where are you going with your company in your life right now?
Yeah. So again, this is the interesting thing. I was a consultant, then I was an agency, and now we're in software. And really, what we're trying to do is scale. I this may say grand, but I don't believe that Intent Company is the name of our business. I believe Intent Company is the name of a movement. And I want to see small businesses be revitalized in this country. I want to see just a plethora of new businesses started. I believe what we've been seeing lately over the last few years, and the downgrade of small businesses, the rise of big companies, I want to see that trend reverse. I want to see people going out there, making a difference, impacting their families. And so I believe that is that if we can see a movement of small businesses and they say, hey, I'm an intent company. I'm intentional about what we do, why we do it. We serve people, we solve problems. We're intent with our systems. We're profitable. I believe that's the best thing for our economy. I believe it's the best thing for our families. I believe that it's really a move that needs to take place in this country, and I would like to be a small part of that influence.
Yeah, I think with that last series of comments, you resonated with our audience, because many of our audience are entrepreneurs on the same journey. They're the small people who are wanting to make it to that next level with the help of automation, with the help of owning their own business and not being under the thumb of the big corporate giants out there. So yeah. You just hit a home run. Saying that's your goal. It's one of our goals too in our company.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I had years working with, I worked with some billion-dollar companies and the biggest software, all this stuff. And I always say, what we're trying to do is provide enterprise level tools for small businesses. You're using the same tools, the same strategies, the same ideas as the big guys, but at a fraction of the cost that you can implement right away in your business.
Sounds so familiar. That's really right on target. Tell me about paid digital media as we just kind of get your expertise. Mm-hmm. Do you use much of that for your company growth?
I do. Again, we focus on advocacy, because I believe that is the lowest hanging fruit. How do you communicate with your current customers is going to have the biggest impact for a business that has a decent customer set. But like I said, once that's done, you then need to start thinking about how do you drive new people. Paid media is fantastic because it's transparent. Not everything in marketing, you can clearly see what's happening. And so I love paid media because we can say, hey, I spent X, I got this much traffic, I got this many clients. I think one of the things that people do wrong in paid media is they think about the initial purchase. They're like, hey, I spent $1,000 in ads, I got 2 customers, it was worth $800, I lost $200. Because again, you're not thinking advocacy. Because if you really, I think the number one metric that most brands don't measure today is lifetime value. What is the lifetime value of your customer? And it's funny because it could be, yes, how many times do they buy, right? You could lose money getting a customer if they're going to buy 5 or 6 more times over the course of the year. And if you can influence those buying decisions at a higher rate, sure, get customers. That's a Dan Kennedy thing, right? It's who can spend the most money to acquire a customer wins. That's a Dan Kennedy-ism. And so if you have a great post-purchase type process, then you can spend more money to get the customer. So you need to know your numbers. You really need to know your metrics, leverage media well. And so I would say, focus there. And then also, nice thing about paid media, you can crawl, walk, run. You can spend $100, you can spend 100,000. So test it, learn, see how the data is working, and then scale in ways that make profitable results for your business.
It's interesting you say that, and I totally believe you're on track with it, because I started over at age 48 and started a new business, new dental practice. And, I was successful in the previous one, but this one took off much better because I had 23 years worth of experience behind me instead of 0, like my first practice. And we were able to grow 10 times faster in the second practice. And we were dominating our local market, and we could spend and have ad buys, and we could do things that we could never have done when we were small. So The bigger you are, the better your ad spend can be. And speaking of ad spend, is there a percentage you recommend on marketing in general, but then pay digital media as a segment?
Yeah, again, that's going to determine a little bit also on your profit margins, right? You're selling digital assets where you have no overhead and it's all, great. I mean, some people will spend 70, 80% of their sales in paid advertising because, 20% return, that's fantastic. You got no overhead. But if you're manufacturing a product or you got staff, you got those kind of things. So your margin's really going to make a difference. I would say the average go is 10 to 20% of your revenue you're going to invest in marketing. And I would say what you spend is more on where are you at in the journey. If you don't have an automated system, again, to turn customers and raving fans, you got to invest in that first. You're investing in a machine. It's kind of the idea that ad spend is almost like planting seeds, right? You're farming, you're planting a bunch of seeds, but do you have a combine harvester that you can harvest, or are you picking everything by hand? Right. So you invest in some of the technology and the tools because it makes the ability to sow and reap a lot better. So you got to look at your systems and understand where you're at. And it's going to vary tremendously whether you're, selling products online or you're trying to get leads and you're making phone calls. So it's going to vary quite a bit. But I do say leverage your current customers first. That's the lowest hanging fruit. Take a portion of that incremental revenue and then invest it in front end advertising. And you kind of create that cyclical process.
I can understand your customer journey very well. And I love the analogy of the seeds being planted, but jumping not from just picking them, but to buying a combine, because that really just talks to automation and mass production, scaling. And the next thing you do is you assimilate other farms and you become a conglomerate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. How would you look back on your life and say to your 20-year-old self, what should I do? I'm talking to myself as a 20-year-old, Billy.
Yeah, you touched on it earlier about mindset. I would say invest in yourself. The greatest investment you can make is in yourself. And so read a lot of books, learn, take people out to lunch that are further ahead than you, listen, pay attention, and then don't be afraid to fail. And so I think the fear of failure is probably the biggest hindrance that people have. You're not supposed to do it perfect. In fact, the quicker you can fail, the quicker you're going to learn. And that experience is priceless. And so, keep pouring in yourself, take chances, get around good people that are doing good things. And, you know, it's amazing, you know, more is caught than taught. And so in that place of just allowing good information, good people, all of those things are going to impact you in a really dramatic way.
I'm surprised that a lot of the intelligent, smart people out there aren't consistently being taken to lunch for the very reason you talk about, to gain the knowledge, because it's so valuable.
Yeah. And I would have had fear back then, you know, kind of like, oh, they're, you know, too busy. But, you know, I mean, I'm not like, you know, in the mature stages of my career with all the success. But man, when I see a young person who's fired up about something, it fires me up. I want to invest in them. I love seeing, I'm like, hey, let's go talk. Let's think about that idea. Like I love seeing the fire of entrepreneurship, of growth, of just grand vision and ideas. And it's there's a lot of people that want to get behind people with those ideas. And so don't be afraid to ask. And yeah.
I'll give you an analogy that fits that desire to help people. I had 18 associates over my years of being a practice owner, dentist, and those associates, well over 50% of them did not try to learn what I was doing. They didn't pick my brain. They didn't try to become better by conversation and understanding. They just wanted to sit back and watch, but they didn't ask questions. The other 50% did, and those came to the place after they left and went on to their own, because most associates do. They were very successful compared to the ones who kind of sat back.
I bet.
You know, people who are actively engaged, they'll do better if you select a mentor. Now, speaking of mentors, do you have a mentor currently?
Yeah, and I have them in different spaces. You know, you know, various things, you know, and you can see somebody who's a great husband, great father, get around them, right? Somebody who's got a great business or spiritual mentor or things like that. It's just good to get around. So I have a handful of people that are further along than me that I spend a lot of time with and do that too. But I would say my overall living mentor would be God himself. And so there is nothing like prayer and expecting that the God of the universe will speak to you and lead you and guide you. And he is definitely the driving force and catalyst of my life. And I'd rather be obedient to what I believe he says. And that's brought the biggest fruit in my life. The ideas I could never think of. And, you know, you hear his voice and you're like, I believe that's you. And I'm going to walk it out. I'm going to take a step of faith, and faith is rewarded. That's for sure.
I 100% agree with that. And when we did our second practice, we actually did a Bob Buford halftime turnaround. If you know Bob Buford, in his book, and he did a second one called Finishing Well, about what you do once you've succeeded. What do you do to impact the world?
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you. Faith and prayer works very powerfully. Why is being impactful important to you, Billy?
Yeah, I think it's almost your duty, if you will, to make a difference, to positively influence the world. And I've been so blessed, and where I've came from where I'm going, and to be able to share that is a joy. It's important. It's you know, hoarding up and just getting success and sitting by yourself, like, nah, man, we got to pour it out. You know, and I believe that those that pour out the most are the ones that get filled the most. And
sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. When I went on my mission trips to Africa, I had a chance during the 2000s to go like 12 straight years to Africa.
That's awesome.
Missions. And it's like, we just had a lot of fun. And the first time I went, I was sitting there in the hut with the chiefs of the village, and we were talking after it was over. We were fixing to leave. And we were saying what we gained from being on the mission. They were saying what they really liked about us coming and doing dentistry and medicine and building a church, building a school, doing all the things we did. And I kind of came back to them and I said, you know, you guys impacted me more than I impacted you. You know, life changes when you go out and serve others.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can we support you in your business? That's the thing. I want you to give us a link to get to you or to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, if you go to intentcompany.com, So INTENT company spelled out.com. There's a tab called resources. And this is the place where we serve people. So we have some various tools. We have our customer journey approach masterclass, also our WOW campaign blueprint. So if you are interested in advocacy, we give a free like 75-page doc with a demo on what do you do. Again, we try to give as much value as we can. And if you need help implementing it, we're here for you. And so really that'd be the best thing to do. And I think it would give you guys a chance to taste what we do, how we do it. And I believe the tools will add value. And if it makes sense to work together, I'm sure it'll happen.
I think that's a valuable resource, theintentcompany.com. Or is it The Intent or just Intent?
Just intentcompany.com.
Gotcha. So I want everybody listening to go to that website and check it out. Look at those freebies because they're valuable. I can hear the value just pouring out of those. When you can offer something like that to somebody who needs it, then you're doing a great service. What about your experience on the show today, Billy? How was it?
This was fantastic. Yeah, no, I really appreciated it. You're great at interviewing. You're easy to talk to. And again, even just you talking about the purpose, I love that. And that's what we all need to do. We need to join together, serve each other, pour out. And I think we're going to see the mission fulfilled. We're going to see this purpose-driven small business invasion, and it's going to be amazing. And so thank you for your impact in that and for inviting me to be on the show.
Absolutely. Well, I enjoyed having you on. And one of my missions, as I stated when I started my second practice, it was I want to bring God into the workplace.
Amen.
And so I never fail anytime that I have an opportunity to deflect that it was all me. I'm not responsible for my success. I basically listen as you do with active prayer or just the Holy Spirit speaking. I listen, and a lot of times you get the message clearly about what you should do and where you should go. So thanks for that. And I want to give you the final word before we come back and so you go ahead and give us your final word, and then I'll come back.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, no, I would, just on the point that you had just mentioned. I don't think there's a greater thing that we can do in our business than seek the Lord, and it says that the eyes of the Lord go to and fro looking for a blameless man that he can show himself strong. And, the only way we get blameless is through the blood of Jesus. And he is a good God and he loves us. And no matter what you've done and where you've been through, he is more than able to wash that away. And so I believe, what I did in, for 27 years, I didn't have any belief in God. And what changed was when I said a brave prayer. I said, if you're real, show up and show me. And he did. And I believe for anybody who is unsure about their faith or God or Jesus, are you willing to say that? If you're real, show up, show me, and he will. And he cares about your business. He cares about the impact it has. And when you can align yourself with kingdom impact, it's unbelievable what can happen in and through your life. And so I just bless you, Lord. I thank you for every person who has watched this. I ask God that you would give supernatural insight and blessing on everything that we learn. I pray that you would bless their businesses. I pray for radical growth. I pray, God, for divine connections where just these things pop out of nowhere and there's blessing and favor. And so, Lord, I just thank you, God, for blessing everyone who's watching this. Thank you, God, for what you're doing. We give you glory and honor in Jesus' name.
Amen. I say, great job of professing what you believe. And I think that's fine. I think that people need to do more of it. In one of my books, I've got what I call the parking lot prayer. Amen. And I teach people how to pray going in, not just coming out.
Amen.
And it's like, it sets your day up right. You pretty much speak the word of what's to come because you can create your future by speaking things as they were, even though they're not yet.
Well, that's one of the most important things. And that's it says death and life is in the power of the tongue. And so, just practical advice you got to be really careful what comes out of your mouth. You got to be really careful. If you're just declaring what's wrong and broken in the economy and all this stuff, it's amazing what it attracts. Yeah. But when you declare good things and blessing and favor and all those things, you get that as well. So you get to choose. The second part of that verse says, death and life is in the power of the tongue. It says, those that love it will eat its fruit. So if you love talking negative, you tend to eat that fruit. And if you love to talk positive, you tend to eat that. So that's a good thing that we get to choose.
Yep. You got it right on target. Speaking of speaking things into reality, you can capture your freedom with this QR code right here. This is my link to myself. You can get through my digital business card. You can find out this is where it goes. The OVU card is a digital business card. And I want to share with the audience and all of your friends that if they want to reach me and talk about being on the Influencers podcast, this is how you do it. drbillwilliams.tv. This has got many of the broadcasts we've done. You can look at them. You can look at all my books that I've written, a couple of international bestsellers in dental management, but they apply to all businesses. And you can also find our AI technology, our software products that we have for general business purposes, for personal purposes. So I want to invite anyone who wants to see those, come aboard, check them out. They're many free and many are better value, better deal. This one relaunched this week internationally to the world for the first time. Connect. So I just want to introduce that to you, Billy. If you're doing podcasts, if you're doing webinars, you know how the competition that we have will charge $6,000 a month if you want 10,000 visitors.
Wow.
On your webinar, we charge $125.
Wow.
We have better features, better service, higher definition audio and video than they do. So we are poised to be very large in the market, and we only launched this week. So it's kind of exciting to be right where we are today. So I want to offer everybody a free trial. Come on board, check it out. For analytics, if you want to check your website success and how we're doing, we've got the best analytics software. This would be very useful for the marketers. It might be better than what you're using now. I don't know. But yeah, you're welcome to it. And the last thing I was going to show you, Billy, because you're interested in furthering the kingdom and helping people, we have a GoFundMe development tool so people can get the word out about their good nonprofits, charities, innovation startups. Doesn't have to be a nonprofit. It could be a for-profit startup. But a new business can use Bless and gain support from the community at large to help them get going. And so Bless is free. We don't take any money. It's all whatever's donated goes straight to the business.
Fantastic.
Very nice ideas will come out of Bless. So I just wanted to share that with the world. And all these things that we have are either free or low cost. The world is changing and we want to be part of that change. So our mission, same as your mission, it sounds like we're very compatible, and we'll keep our focus together on the end goal of lifting humanity to the level, letting the small guy be successful. That's our goal.
Amen.
Well, thanks for being on the Influencer Podcast. Thanks for all the gems you laid upon us. And I want everybody to be sure and go to intentcompany.com. Check out what's going on with Billy Robbins. Thank you, sir. And we'll see you all on the next Influencer Podcast.